Pixar movies are considered to be some of the highest quality blockbuster animated movies to ever exist. But what is the ultimate Pixar movie? Introducing the ultimate Pixar Tier List. For the next film on the ultimate Pixar Tier List, we dive right into Luca, a film all about two sea monster boys exploring humanity. This film tells a classic coming-of-age story with an Italian backdrop and looks to explore what it means to be human and to be an outcast. Does Luca's story work, or does it tread on ground that has been explored a million times over? Luca's a bit of a simple film. It's sort of hard for me to even break this down. In a lot of ways, this kind of made me question, what am I even doing? Like, I know Pixar movies are children's movies, and I think children's movies deserve to be viewed under the same criticism as any other film. I strongly believe that. That's why I have done it. I think you can have a good children's movie that appeals to children and adults, and this film, I think, does appeal to children and adults, but its themes and concept and overall, the whole film is just so simple. This really feels like, out of all the Pixar films, the one that is most geared towards appeasing to children and just telling a simple story that children can understand, like a message that all normal functioning adults understand and every other child just needs to learn. So it's kind of hard for me to even break this down because there's not much here. This is definitely, at this point, probably the most simplest Pixar movie. Like, it really is, spells out exactly what it does, and then it does that. Now, by no means does that make a bad film. Like, I don't think every film needs to be a complex, deep dive into really interesting conceptual ideas and themes. But Luca just, I don't know, doesn't really do that. And I don't think that that's bad. Its themes are very simple, like learning to be accepted or learning to accept others, learning to break out of your shell, and that's pretty much it. I think actually the themes of this film are really left up to interpretation. The main two boys are sort of viewed as whoever you want to be. It could be an allegory for immigration, like immigrating and dealing with sort of like being viewed as outcasts, because, you know, if they're discovered to be whatever they are to be, they're most likely to face violence. I think a common reading of this film is that these two characters are representative of gay characters, which, you know, I think was probably a little bit of subtext feels there. Like, it almost feels like there's a bit of jealousy going on later in the film, as if these two boys have a deeper connection. And a part of me sort of wishes that was the case and they would just kind of make that more of a centerpiece of the film. I think it would have worked a lot better, but it doesn't commit to it. So it's kind of like it's queer baiting a little bit, but not really because it's not committing to it. I don't know. That's what I mean. This film is so simple. It doesn't really commit to making a statement. It just is so general that it kind of leaves it open for interpretation and for you to read it as you want, which I like, although how I read it is that there's definitely some gay stuff going on here, and I wish they just committed to it, but whatever. Kind of a critique, but also not. I don't know. I just want more gay stories for children, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not really gonna hold this film against what it isn't, but what it is just a very simple story with a very simple thematic structure, and I liked it. I think it worked. Like, I think it worked pretty well. Yeah, like, it's hard for me to sit up here and say, like, man, like, it was so bad, and oh man, like, man, I really wish, like, everything was, like, so conceptually deep, you know, like a Ratatouille or a Wall-E. But simultaneously, I just watched the film Soul, which I think is a lot more deep, a lot more conceptual, a lot more bold, but also takes a lot more missteps because it is so bold and so grand. And this film, I think, takes a lot less missteps, but in the end, it also says a lot less. I don't know. I definitely had a lot of emotional impact watching this. It definitely hit me emotionally, but it didn't really make me think too much. But again, like, the film wasn't going for that. If the film was going for that, like, you know, maybe a film like The Good Dinosaur, I think was going for that, but fucking failed. This film is almost like a version of The Good Dinosaur that recognizes, like, yeah, we can kind of keep this simple. We can kind of just, you know, take the steps we need to take and make this a much better film. This is definitely way better than The Good Dinosaur. It almost feels like they learned from The Good Dinosaur and took a lot of that structure and elements of that, like, you know, hurting animals in the beginning. I don't know. And yeah, but I also think like this film definitely could have been fleshed out in some ways. I think the beginning of this film, when Luca's in the sea, like there's fish that are making sheep sound and he's hurting them. Like I don't really, that part felt very a little bit uncanny, and the whole stuff under the sea was really pretty uninteresting to me, and it went on I think a little bit too long. And then the film gets started going, and then it goes way too fucking quick. Yeah, this film definitely has a pacing problem. The like first third of the film is I think a little bit too slow, primarily up to where he meets his friend. I think the point in which Luca actually, you know, starts like they start riding like the bike and exploring, you know, being a human and being a kid, that stuff's good, but everything before that feels a little bit too slow. And then when they finally get to the meat of the story, it feels to go by so fucking quick. It just feels like they're rushing through it. I wish this film explored stuff a little bit more, maybe like fleshed out some relationships a little bit more, because it feels like when characters start getting jealous of each other, it just feels a little bit like rushed, like a little bit like underdeveloped. I also just think the ending of this film, you know, the very, very ending, the ending, I think works, but like the third act, or like the final set piece, the whatever you call it, like the marathon race with the fucking swimming and the spaghetti and the fucking riding the bike, I think all that happens a little bit too fast, and the whole sea monster stuff at the end, and there's sea monsters, yeah, sure, whatever, like, yeah, I think all that like happens way too fucking quick. They really could have slowed that down a lot. It felt like they were rushing it a little bit too much. So yeah, there's definitely problems I have with this film, but with that comes great animation and excellent voice casting. I think the voice performance was really good. All the child voices were fucking excellent. Like, really happy that you could get, it's hard to get good child performances, and they got some good ones here. So I gotta give them credit. They did a good job with that. And yeah, I think the voice performances are good, but the characters, yeah, they're very simple. You could use the term one-dimensional, although I think Luca definitely has some depth to him. There's definitely some unexplored character depth that could have been tapped into, I think, here. But, like, again, like, I think the film wanted to keep them simple, wanted to keep the plot simple, wanted to keep this villain simple, and I think, like, that's fine. Like, I don't, like, I'm not someone who's like, oh man, like you need these things to have a good film. Like, I don't think that. I think you could have a nice simple story for kids to learn and, you know, adults, I guess, to enjoy, and just keep it simple. And that's fine, because it nails the simplicity, even if I think this film does have some pacing problems. And yeah, that's really my biggest complaint, is the pacing. But it's hard for me to even say much more about this film. The music's excellent. I think the scenery is also really good. They did a good job of capturing like the sort of sea town, and yeah, I just think this was a very delightful film. Really, this film just kind of put into question how I rank these movies, because like I said, this film is just so simple. It's hard for me to necessarily rank it in a conceivable way, because I think this film, I'll be honest with you guys, I enjoyed this film more than I did a movie like Soul. Like, I watched this film, and I think it was, I personally enjoyed it more than Soul. But when it ended, I didn't really think about it. Even Soul, a movie I had, you know, some problems with, just had way more higher highs, and I think I just appreciate it more than that. So I don't think this movie is, you know, as good to me as Soul. Like, even if I, again, had some scathing criticism of Soul, I don't have as much scathing criticism here, but in the same token, I don't have as a lot of praise for it. Like, I enjoyed this movie. Personally, I enjoyed this movie. But when I look at it compared to the rest of the movies, like especially the movies in A, S, and B tier, like I don't think this is a movie I enjoyed as much as those, or I think was as bold. I think maybe a movie I kind of see it being toe-to-toe with is a movie like Inside Out in a lot of ways, but even Inside Out played with some really bold conceptual stuff, but the writing kind of struggled. Like, the writing here, there's not much for me to critique with the writing, because it is very, very simple. Like, the writing is super tight and constructed really well, but it's like, you know, because it's so simple. So, like, am I praising it for that or critiquing it for that? Kind of both, but also neither. I know. It's weird. I didn't think Luca would break my fucking tier list, but I think it might. I think this might be the breaking point. Still, overall, I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed what they did with the characters. It does use a lot of tropes in his writing. It does have that classic Pixar, you know, buddy teams up, then splits up 2/3 of the movie, and then in the end goes their separate ways. I don't know if that part is different, but I do like the idea of Luca going to school. I do like the idea of Luca, you know, finally like embracing humanity and his parents and everyone being accepted. But again, like, it does feel like a little bit too rushed. You know, like maybe it could have had a little bit more work in it. I just think this film could have been probably like 15 minutes longer, maybe. Like, just really pace this film a little bit slower. Really explore the relationship between the three main kids. Because I think there was some interesting stuff there. I really enjoyed the telescope scene, for instance, and I also really enjoyed the sequences where Luca is like imagining like stuff, like he's imagining like on the scooter, like going over the water or like touching the moon. Like there were like a lot of those sections. Him walking on, what was it? Was it Saturn, like in the water? Like, I think a lot of those sections are like where the film, animation wise and conceptual wise, is like, whoa, like we're getting into this shit. I like this. I like seeing this stuff. It definitely was probably some of the highlights for me. But overall, like, yeah, like I enjoyed Luca. I enjoyed it. Would I say it was like one of Pixar's best? Absolutely not. Would I say it's one of Pixar's worst? Absolutely not. Would I say it's just a fine film that I watched, enjoyed, and, you know, I kind of appreciate for what it is? Yeah. What does that mean in its ranking? I don't know. This is definitely the hardest film I have to rank. I think the range is obvious for me, but it's like, I think overall I left this film having less criticisms than a movie like Soul or Inside Out, but also a lot less to praise and a lot less to really, you know, think it. I don't know. It's almost like, okay. It's almost like if someone made me a meal, right? And it's just a sandwich. It's just like, damn, this is a good sandwich. You know, it has you know, turkey and cheese and lettuce, and it's so fucking simple, but it is good. Like, it's good. I enjoyed it compared to like maybe like a really ambitious meal that, you know, all right, like, you know, maybe this could have been cooked better and this could have done better. But overall, I think it was like, it was really bold and it worked for what it was in a lot of ways. But in some ways, I think it could have been done better. It's like, well, what do I want? Like, you know, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to fucking choose what I value. I think overall, I just value more bold and conceptual films. But I also appreciate films that do tell simple stories in very effective and decent ways. I mean, Toy Story did it. I think Toy Story's story is extremely simple, but it just told it so fucking well. Now, I don't think this is the same creativity and concept and humor and all of that Toy Story has. I actually don't even think Luca was really that funny of a film. I don't even really remember laughing that much. It had some maybe clever set pieces, but like nothing that was really burst out laughing. Like, again, like, there's nothing in this film that really was like, oh man, this specifically was fucking amazing. But just more like, oh, I think overall, like, I had a little good stuff sprinkled throughout a very decent movie. So that definitely had a factor on where I ranked it. So where am I ranking it? Well, Luca is a very simple film. And in the end, there isn't all that much to say. Its themes are very simple and spelled out, and the film is aware of this. The characters are simple and get the job done with good voice performances. The animation is stellar and the setting pops really vibrantly. The film does take a bit to get going and then gets going a bit too fast and at times can feel rushed. The ending feels like it happens a bit too fast, meaning this film definitely has some pacing problems. Still, the music is great and the writing and story works. Again, it's just such a simple story, it's hard to pick apart. Just because it isn't a deep conceptual dive doesn't make this film anything less. The film works for what it is trying to do, and for that, I commend it, but all in all, I think it's a film I enjoyed, but at the end of the day is just fine compared to what other Pixar films have done. Luca swims right into a C rank. Honestly, this is probably my favorite film in the C tier from start to end, but it's also probably the safest. Remember, C tier doesn't mean it's a bad movie, just a bit unremarkable. In a lot of ways, I would say, yeah, this is my favorite C tier movie, even if it isn't as ambitious as something like Soul. However, I would be lying if I said that lack of ambition doesn't hold the film back a bit for me. But I do appreciate this film for what it is. Well, there we go. Another film down in the tier list. Yeah, I don't know what to really say about Luca more than I can say. I think it's one of the safest, one of the simplest Pixar films. And I kind of enjoy it for that. Like, a part of me wanted to put this movie in B tier because I think it's a good movie. But I just think compared to something like Soul, it doesn't really reach that ambitious level. And I think it is hard to say this movie's better than Soul. I think really this film goes toe-to-toe with something like Finding Dory, where it's just super simple, super safe, kind of easy to explain, but still works. And yeah, even Finding Dory I feel like was a little more ambitious in some ways. It's kind of weird to say. But yeah, I don't know. Putting this behind me, I think this film definitely made me analyze, like, wow, like, how do I rank films that just aren't really made for me, like films that are really made for children, much more significant than me. But then I also thought, well, I think that balance is important. Not that I need to go to a children's film and be like, what, it's not made for me? It sucks! But, like, there's definitely ways to analyze children's films and say, like, well, you could have done this better, you could have done that better, and, you know, the pacing definitely was a little bit rough, and there's definitely elements of this film that I think could have been done a little bit better and explored a little deeper while also keeping its simple tone. I personally just wish they explored some of the more character dynamics a little more and maybe some more themes. And I don't know. Yeah, the allegory works, and I think it as a film it works and it's fine. And I would recommend it. If I were to say there's one C tier movie to watch, it would probably be this one if you just want a simple, fun ride. But if you want to explore something deeper, maybe watch Soul, even if I think that movie, again, took a lot of missteps. But we're on to our next film being Turning Red. Look, this is the only Pixar film that's out that we have left. I know we still have Lightyear, but at the time of this recording, that movie's not even out yet. So we're about to watch, potentially, our final film. I don't know what we're going to do with Lightyear yet. I'm going to wait and hold off on that. I don't know if I'm going to watch it in theaters or wait for it to come out on Disney Plus and watch it with you guys. But either way, this could potentially be the last film I'm watching with you guys. So please watch this film with me. It just came out a couple weeks ago, Turning Red. Watch it with me. I'm looking forward to watching it and exploring it with you guys live on Twitch. And this is going to be, you know, possibly the last time we do that. So I'm excited for it. The Turning Red video is not coming out next week, however. I'm going to take 2 weeks to write it. I don't have any reason to, you know, release it quicker because we don't have another film to watch because Lightyear's not out yet. So we'll watch Turning Red together. The video will come out in a couple weeks, and then we'll take about a month break and wait for Lightyear to come out, watch that, and then wrap it all up and make adjustments and have the final ultimate Pixar tier list. Luca's a film that definitely could get adjusted, I think. Maybe, we'll see. A lot of other films, I think, could get adjusted within their tiers or even change tiers. So I'm excited for that. But you know what I'm really excited for? Turning Red, because I don't know anything about it, and I just want to watch a movie with you guys. So we'll be doing that today on my Twitch channel. Link in the description. And remember, it's all about the fucking Italians. I didn't do this once. You guys gotta give me credit. I didn't fucking do my fucking Italian thing. Fucking what? Give me some fucking credit.